Shalom, family. This is Alba's daughter. I am bringing my podcast to YouTube. This particular setup is designed for you guys to listen to while you are doing housework. If you want to just sit down and take notes, if you need better understanding, not only is this particular segment for the house of Yashael, but it's also for the other nations who want to understand things a little bit better and to learn about what is happening biblically in our world. If you pay attention to the Bible, it is very clear that prophecy revolves around the house of Yashael, but the key is to know exactly who they are, okay? Now, I will do a episode about who Yashael is in greater detail in a separate episode. This one is called The House of Esau Will Pay. Now, there's a reason why I am doing this one first, okay? Now, I was going to do something different first, but every time, look, family, let me backtrack a little bit. I know I am not the only one that is seeing all of this demonic activity happening against the house of Yashael, my people. I know I'm not the only one seeing this. And every time I see it, the anger just stirs inside of my spirit. And I know I am not the only one, especially those who understand what is happening. Okay. Unfortunately, there are still plenty of our people who are not awake yet, and they need to get it together as soon as possible, because here pretty soon we're getting ready to transition into some really hard judgments, okay? And our people need to be ready and prepared for it. But let's talk about the house of Esau, okay? First of all, let's talk about what I am seeing. Let's talk about what we are all seeing. We are seeing an increase in attacks against our people by the police force, by the government officials, by regular people, older people of other nations, even younger people of other nations. We are seeing this increased attack, which is actually leading to something real soon. And I will discuss that one. I'm not sure if it'll be this episode or it might be another one in great detail, okay? But who is Esau? Okay. That is the greatest question that many people have. They still don't fully understand who Esau is. Okay. So I'm going to read out of the Bible and I'm going to read out of the Apocrypha. Specifically, I'm going to read out of the book of Jasher and the book of Jubilees. Okay. Jasher is mentioned in the Bible and Jubilees as well, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it still is a part of these important scripts that we need to study. All right. So I'm going to go into the book of Genesis. Now, I always read out of the King James Version. I do not read any other version. There's a reason for that. And if the Lord puts it on my spirit to remember, I will explain why that is. But we're going to start with the story of Esau. It begins with Esau and Jacob, okay? So in Genesis chapter 25, we will begin, let's see. Let's begin with verse 19. And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated Ahiah for his wife, because she was barren. And Ahiah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of Ahiah. And before I continue, family, I do call upon the true name of our Heavenly Father, which is Achaya, all right? It's spelled Ahayah. That is Hebrew for I am that I am. If you guys remember when in the book of Exodus, when Moses was called by the Lord, Moses asked the Lord, who do I tell them? That called me. Who do I tell them sent me? And he said, tell them I am sent you. I am that I am, right? So in Hebrew, that's Ahaya. That's his name, okay? So don't get confused. I just replaced the Lord or God with his name because that's who he is. I don't want to be confused on who I'm talking about, all right? So let's get back. Verse 23 says, and Ahiah said unto her, two nations are in your womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from your bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. So before she was give birth, I guess she didn't realize that she was having twins. When you read the Apocrypha, it sounds like she didn't realize she was having twins. Verse 25 says, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 old when she bare them. Okay. So one score is 20 years. So 80 means he was 60 years old when she bare them. Verse 27 says, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field. Now, family, I want you to really just think about that. Okay. When we talk about the traits of our fathers, let's think about this. It's very important that you concentrate on this because this is what helps us to understand who Esau is, all right, and who Jacob is. Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field. So he loved to be outside, being outdoors. He loved to hunt. That was his thing. Now, we have to remember once again, we do the things our father does. And that's everybody, everywhere, okay? We do what our father does. So just think about really think about this. What people love to go hunting? What people love to be outdoors? Okay? Let's think about that. Then it says, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. Okay. And Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So you have these twins, all right, that came from her. One is a macho, strong man of the field. He's a cunning hunter. He loves to be outside. And Isaac is like all for it. He's like, yo, this is my son. He's proud of him. He's burly man, right? Man's man. And not saying Jacob ain't a man's man, but he's a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more on the gentler side, okay? And that doesn't make him any less of a man. If anything, it makes him more of a man because, and we'll get into that, later. But Rebecca loved his soft spirit, his soft heart, his calm spirit. She loved it, right? And so you got the household divided. And it's interesting to see that, right? So verse 29 says, and Jacob sawed pottage, okay, meaning he cooked pottage. And Esau came from the field, and he was faint, or he was tired, exhausted. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. All right, there we go. This is the first time that we hear the name Edom. So Edom is it means red, okay? Because one, he was red all over. Two, he traded his birthright for some red pottage. So that's why they called him Edom. All right. Verse 31 says, And Jacob said, Sell me this day your birthright. All right. So, for those who don't understand what a birthright is, when twins are born, the one that comes out the womb first is the oldest sibling. I mean, they're both born almost at the same time, but they both don't come out the same time. So the one that comes out first is the oldest. So when it comes time for the father to pass down the blessings and the property and all of that, they normally always go to the oldest son. That's why it's important for a lot of men to have an heir. You'll hear that often. That is their birthright. Okay, their birthright. They are given. They by birth are in that position to receive all of the goods that'll be passed down when the father, when it's time. But Jacob said, Sell me this day your birthright. So what he's saying is that he understands the value of that birthright. And we'll get into that here in a minute. Verse 32 says, And Esau said, Behold, I am at the point to die. And what profit shall this birthright do to me? And Jacob said, Swear to me this day. And he sware unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So let's talk about this, okay? Why did Esau despise his birthright? Let's go into Webster's Dictionary of 1828 and let's look up the word despise. Okay. I'm looking it up right now. Despise means to contemn, to scorn, to disdain, to have the lowest opinion of, to abhor. Abhor means to hate. Okay. So why would it say in the word that Esau hated his birthright, right? Let's talk about this. Having a birthright is so important, family. That's why many kings always want to have a son because that is their heir, because everything will pass down to them. Everything. Now you have to understand what came with Isaac. It wasn't just the material wealth that came with Isaac. It was also promises, blessings, and covenants of the Most High that came with that birthright, okay? Not just the material wealth. Mind you, Ahiah was so faithful and so loving towards Isaac that he blessed him abundantly. So, yes, Isaac and Rebekah, they all had so much. They had a lot of property. Remember, Abraham had tons of property too, and he split it up amongst his children. But having a birthright is the best thing that could ever happen to a firstborn. Okay. So Jacob, he understood that. Jacob didn't care about the material wealth that came with it. No, Jacob could care less about the material. Jacob wanted the blessing. He wanted the promise that was given to Isaac about the increase of his people, the land. He wanted the promises of the Most High. And Jacob saw the value in that. And you have to really think about it like Jacob must have been thinking about this for a while for him to really ask his brother for it. And being in the position where Esau could have easily went and cooked his own food, or he could have easily, there might have been a loaf of bread somewhere. He could have picked up some bread and ate and sustained himself enough to make his own, he could have done that. But Esau did not see that value in being the oldest. He didn't see the value the way Jacob saw the value. Okay. So when you guys see that, don't think for 1 second that there was some kind of material gain, that was seen in the eyes of Jacob. That's not the case. It was really the spiritual he was after. He didn't care about the physical. He cared about the spiritual. He knew that if he didn't get that blessing, if he wasn't spiritually the oldest, he would never receive that blessing, and he wanted the blessing over anything. Okay. So I wanted to read something out of let me see, the book of Jubilees. Let me see if you guys have the Apocrypha, or if you don't, I recommend that you get it. I know years ago they told us not to get it, but the world doesn't want us to learn truth. But I'm going to read out of the book of Jubilees. We're going to go to chapter 24, and I'm going to read verse 3 to 7. It says, Jacob made lentil soup, and Esau came from the field hungry. He said to Jacob his brother, give me some of this red soup. Jacob said to him, sell to me your birthright, and I will give you bread, and also some of this lentil soup. And Esau said in his heart, if I shall die, what good is my birthright to me? He said to Jacob, I give it to you. And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore to him. And Jacob gave his brother Esau bread and soup. And he ate until he was satisfied. And Esau despised his birthright. For this reason was Esau's name called Edom, or red, because of the red soup which Jacob gave him for his birthright. And Jacob became the elder, and Esau was brought down from his dignity. Okay, so as you can see, that lines up exactly with what we read. It's exactly what we were talking about. It's exactly what we said, okay, about how Esau despised his birthright so much. He didn't care about it. He just wanted to eat. He didn't care about his birthright. And he sold it to Jacob. I want to read out of Jasher, if you will. Let me see. Jasher chapter 26. I got to turn to it, family. Let's see. Give me a second here. See, you doing stuff like this, you got to have multiple devices. For real. I'm not playing. You got to have multiple devices when you're doing stuff, because what you're doing is you're comparing. You're doing what the scribes do. They compare different things. Let me see. It's Jasher chapter 26. We're in 25. Okay. And 26. All right. So 26 verse 8 to 19, it says, and the Lord heard the prayer of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Ahiah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And in about 7 months after the children struggled together within her, it pained her greatly, and she was wearied on account of them. She said to all the women who were then in the land, did such a thing happen to you as it has to me? And they said to her, no. And she said to them, why am I alone in this among all the women that were on earth? And she went to the land of Moriah to see Ahiah on account of this. She went to Shem and Eber his son to make inquiries of them in this matter, that they should seek Ahiah in this thing respecting her. She also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of Ahiah about all that had befallen her. They all inquired of Ahiah concerning this matter, and they brought her word from Ahiah and told her, 2 children are in your womb, and 2 nations shall rise from them. One nation shall be stronger than the other, and the greater shall serve the younger. When her days to be delivered were completed, she knelt down, and behold, there were twins in her womb, as Ahiah had spoken to her. The first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and all the people of the land called his name Esau, saying, "This one was made complete from the womb." And after that came his brother, and his hand took hold of a side of Esau's heel. Therefore they called his name Jacob. So it's telling us twice, first in Genesis and here in Jasher, that Jacob wasn't born literally with his hand, around his brother's heel. What happened was as his brother was coming out, that is when Jacob's hand shot out of the womb and grabbed his heel. See what I'm saying? Imagine that. Esau wasn't being pulled out with Jacob's hand on his heel. No, Esau was being pulled out and Jacob's hand shot out and grabbed his heel, which is really interesting. Verse 16 says, Isaac, the son of Abraham, was 60 years old when he had them. See, told you guys, 60. 60. The boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came among the society of men. Esau was a designing and deceitful man and an expert hunter in the field. Okay, once again, we have to look at the attributes of Esau. This is another attribute. It says he was a designing and deceitful man. Who do we know are designing and deceitful? Can't make this up. All right. Then it says Jacob was a man perfect and wise, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks and learning the instructions of Ahiah and the commands of his father and mother. I tell you, he was a meek man. Isaac and the children of his household lived with his father Abraham in the land of Canaan, as God had commanded them. Ishmael, the son of Abraham, went with his children, all belonging to them. They returned there to the land of Havilah, and they lived there. Okay. So family, I have decided while doing this, the Lord put it on my spirit, I'm going to break this up in parts. Okay. So this is part 1. Now, we gotta really for real think about this, right? On who Esau is. Matter of fact, I have 2 more parts to read to you regarding this matter, but I really want you to focus and really think about what is going on here. Who is Esau? And what are his descendants called? Edomites. And why are they called that? Because they called him Edom after he traded his birthright for red pottage. So, family, we have another part here. We'll do 2 more parts and we'll end this part 1. We got chapter 27, verse 1 to 14. So, this is a very important segment. So, just pay attention, because this involves another element for you guys to think about, and we'll talk about that some other time. So chapter 27, verse 1 to 14 says, Esau at that time, after the death of Abraham, frequently went in the field to hunt. Once again, his ability to hunt. He loves to hunt. Keep thinking about that. Now, Nimrod. Family, pay attention. This is interesting. Nimrod, the king of Babel, the same was, forgive me, I am butchering this name, Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. Nimrod was observing Esau all those days, for jealousy was formed in the heart of Nimrod against Esau. On a certain day, Esau went in the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. All his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness, but they kept at a distance. They went from him in different directions to hunt, and Esau concealed himself from Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him. Nimrod and his men frequently walked about in the field at the cool of the day, and to know where his men were hunting in the field. Nimrod and two of his men that were with him came to the place where they were, when Esau appeared suddenly from his lurking place. He drew his sword and hurriedly ran to Nimrod and cut off his head. So, family, we have an indication that Esau was the one that killed Nimrod. Okay, let's keep that in mind. Verse 8, Esau fought a desperate fight with the two men that were with Nimrod. And when they called out to him, Esau turned to them and struck them to death with his sword. All the mighty men of Nimrod who had left him to go to the wilderness heard the cry at a distance, and they knew the voices of those two men. They ran to know the cause of it, and they found their king and the two men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness. When Esau saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance, he fled and thereby escaped. Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land. He ran and concealed them in his house. Esau took those garments and ran into the city on account of Nimrod's men, and he came to his father's house wearied and exhausted from fight, and he was ready to die through grief when he approached his brother Jacob and sat before him. So, family, this explains why Esau was so exhausted that he could not think of anything but to rejuvenate his strength. Pay attention, verse 12. And he said to his brother Jacob, behold, I shall die this day. Wherefore then do I want the birthright? And Jacob acted wisely with Esau in this manner, and Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, for it was so brought about by Ahiah. Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for the possession of a burial ground, Esau also sold to Jacob, and Jacob bought all this from his brother Esau for value given. Jacob wrote all of this in a book, and he testified the same with witnesses and sealed it, and the book remained in the hands of Jacob. So, family, we have an explanation in the book of Jasher as to why Esau was so famished, why he was so faint, so exhausted, okay? To the point that he didn't even care about the birthright. He had a busy day. Let's read one more and then we'll conclude this first part, okay? So let's go to chapter 28 and we will begin at verse 19. It says, Esau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home what he could get. So did Esau all the days. Esau was a designing and deceitful man. Look, once again, one who hunted after the hearts of men and inveigled them. I have not come across that word before. Let's talk about that. Inveigled. Inveiggled. Family, forgive me. I'm one of those who are big on looking up what words mean. I don't like to just assume what they mean, even though we can give a good guess. But let's see. Inveigled means entice or seduce from duty. Wow. Okay. So he was a narcissist. That's what it says. After the hearts of men and inveigled them. And Esau was a valiant man in the field. In the course of time, he went as usual to hunt and came as far as the field of Seir, the same as Edom. And he remained in the land of Seir, hunting in the field 1 year and 4 months. Esau there saw in the land of Seir the daughter of a man of Canaan, and her name was Jehudith, the daughter of Beri, son of Epher, from the families of Heth, the son of Canaan. Esau took her for a wife, and he came to her. 40 years old was Esau when he took her, and he brought her to Hebron, the land of his father's dwelling place, and he lived there. Okay. So, family, we have actually learned quite a bit about who Esau is. Okay. who Esau is, what his descendants are called, and why they are called that. So I'm gonna leave you guys with this end note. This is something for you guys to think about. Concentrate on the attributes of Esau. Okay, really concentrate on the attributes we talked about and discussed, and think about what nation you know for sure who has those same traits. We got hunting. We got a man of who likes to be outdoors. We got um a deceitfulness. Okay. We have narcissism. We have a man that is pretty much able to get others to do what he wants them to do. Family, I rest my case. We know who Esau is. So, with that being said, we will definitely continue with this journey here pretty soon, family. All right. So, I thank you guys for joining me with this first part. We will continue with the second part. Shalom.